Hello, and welcome to the 43rd episode of Adam Alonzi's podcast. Please check out the links to the International Longevity Alliance and the Major Mouse Testing Program included in the description. Alright. So it seems strange that very few people have paid much attention to this problem, even though, as you mentioned, we have overcome most all of the infectious diseases that used to kill us on a regular basis.
Yes, well, I think that's actually one of the reasons medicine has become quite good at fighting infectious diseases. And when you discuss with medical doctors, have been trained to see medicine as about curing and treating acute diseases, not chronic diseases. And so, in fact, aging was not considered by them as a disease because they were filtering out what a disease is by looking at acute issues and infections. And so when we say, well, aging may be a disease or may be treated as a disease, that's out of the box for this type of vision that we had to develop very strongly, because that were the most reasons for us to suffer and die up to a few decades ago, up to 100 years ago. So now we have those chronic diseases and aging conditions, and we probably don't have the right means that we have developed to face them. For example, we usually wait until we have a very bad condition, suddenly a very strong dose of treatment. But perhaps what we see through the mice, that we are able to make live much longer in a healthy state than, say, if we were applying to them what we do for us. So what we're discovering is that these mice, we can extend their health for a very long period of time by giving small doses of treatment on a regular way before they have really a bad health. So it's called preventive medicine in a way. And this is new because often we don't want to take a treatment if we don't have a disease or if we don't have a severe disease. But perhaps actually it would be much better to prevent and to stay in good health. So there's this, and to the prevention and the fact that when we age, our body degrades in many ways, and it can be treated. So it was out of the box because we were thinking of the diseases, and well, just 200 years ago, half of the children were not reaching adulthood. So that was where the efforts were. Today, it's very rare for someone to die, say, before the age of 65. And when it happens, it's a tragedy. But it was normal before. So that's why, society is slowly shifting to the current needs. But we still see everywhere that people want to improve the fight for lots of diseases that today are not so proeminent. Today, what we really die of and what we really suffer is cancers, Alzheimer's, and all the chronic and aging diseases. And for that, we haven't developed the right tools so far. This is why with basic fundamental science, we have been able to see what drugs do on a short-term basis, for example, but not on a long-term basis, not on chronic and aging disease. So the best way we have found is just to test in mice. And mice, it's a model, will tell us what is happening over the long term and what works. So this is why we think there's an urgency facing the, I would say, aging epidemics to test the solutions because we don't know. We have good guesses of what is going to work, but we need to check. And then we can work them in mice and in humans, and we can extend the healthy and productive lifespan by many decades. And perhaps many centuries, we will see. It's difficult to announce it in advance, but certainly many decades, yes, and then we hope much more.
In a way, medicine at this time is missing the forest by looking at the trees.
Exactly. The trees were some time ago the forests, but there is another forest behind, which is aging and chronic diseases, and people are not seeing it.
And there are a few different approaches. Some people talk about gene therapy, others mention stem cells, others are looking at more sophisticated delivery systems for pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm. So yes, and so in fact they may not be so different. For example, our body is coded with genes. It's our natural body expression. Genes will do things. Genes will improve increase the production of some proteins, for example. But drugs will also alter the ways proteins work. The difference is that drugs are like a little bomb. They come from the outside world. It's a chemical product, and the body is not made to react well to such drugs. So we have to make a lot of efforts for drugs to work well, and we have a lot of side effects. So the hope is that with gene therapy, we can achieve the same thing, but with much less side effects. People are sometimes afraid of gene therapy because it's like changing the body. Well, yes and no. When we have a sore throat, for example, 20% of the time it is an adeno-associated virus, the same one that is used to make a gene therapy. So it just occurs to us when we have a sore throat, and it's acting quite efficiently. So that's one way to deliver drugs, so to say, and perhaps a better way. And there are indeed some techniques that cannot be just addressed with genes or drugs, or maybe it can, but it's complex. And so we may want other aspects. So I'm giving an example, regrowing the thymus. When we are young, we have a thymus that makes our immune system. And nature has found that if we keep it for too long, it becomes toxic. And so nature has made it disappear at the age of 30. As a result, when we are old, we don't have a thymus, and we have the immune system that we have developed when we were young. But it was long ago, and our immune system is weak. So we need to grow the thymus again. And here, for now, we have some techniques that are not drugs, that are not gene therapies, but they seem to work. And those are types of things that we need to test in mice and in humans. And of course, we could imagine also surgery. Surgery is neither gene therapy nor drug. It's another way of intervening, perhaps a more direct way.
Right, and in the case of gene therapy and in drug delivery, specificity and increasing sophistication are both extremely important. Myostatin inhibitor, for instance, would be wonderful for skeletal muscle, maybe not so much for cardiac tissue.
Right, exactly. So, in fact, gene therapy is a new way to access the body to make changes like drugs that we are using so far. And it's the beginnings. So now since, for 2 years, we are able to do some gene therapies that are extremely controlled. It's almost like a copy-paste on a computer. This is why it is now going fast. But it has taken us a lot of time to find that.
And as we mentioned earlier, although the recording may not have turned out very well there are numerous small interventions that can mitigate the aging process, even though in and of itself it's extremely complex. We can do a great deal even at this time to slow it.
Absolutely. Today we know in mice, and we start to know in humans too, that small doses of aspirin is good. So, of course, it's on a statistical basis. Some people may be more sensitive to side effects than others. But globally speaking, it's good for health. It reduces lots of issues. We know that physical activity is good. We know that metformin is good. We know that. So when I say we know, it's always, it's science. So we have to measure, we have to test. And so then we have a degree of certitude depending on how many people have been tested, in what conditions, etc. But here we really have a high degree now of evidence. So because, for example, for metformin, we have millions of people that have been using metformin. And out of those data, there were some different people who found that people who are taking metformin, although it's primarily used for diabetes, those people, they have less mortality rates than even the general population, than non-diabetics people. So we do have some means to go further in humans. But this is the very beginning concept that we can prevent aging and chronic diseases, and we can even restore health and restore regeneration. And so perhaps aging will end sometime soon because we will unleash the natural body capacities to restore itself, and we will improve it. And so it's simply that the field is new. There has been for always people have tried to fight disease and aging, but it's only very recently that it has become a science. And I remember biogerontology, when I got interested in it maybe in the year 2000, it wasn't really a science at that time. So that's why it's really so new. And now things are going very fast because there is, it's actually quite easy. It's quite easy because no one has really too much effort on it before. Only a few people here and there, not labs, not clinical trials. And so it's starting now.
In a sense, evolution has already given us many of the tools we need.
Absolutely.
We just have to learn how to tap into them.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And in fact, some animals don't age, or we think they don't age. And, they may be different from us in terms of shape, but still what we can see is that they have some things in common. Typically, they constantly regenerate, and they constantly remove the old parts of their body. So I could take some examples that most people don't know, but I could take also an example that most people know. We can take trees. Trees, they have their the outside of the tree, of the trunk, is renewed every year. This is why when we cut a tree, we see the circles, and the outside is living, but the inside is dead. It's wood, and the inside is like the waste of the old body that is growing outside, and so it's a continuous regeneration, and so this is why the trees can live so long. And we have some rockfish, for example, that also live for hundreds of years, and they constantly repair, and they either isolate, like the trees, or remove the old parts of the bodies. And so this is why we think that senolytics, which we want to try here out of other promising solutions, may do a great deal to our health, because our body is not equipped with this system. It keeps the old cells that start to make lots of issues, to increase inflammation, to increase the risk of cancers, because they are old and they have accumulated lots of issues. So if we can destroy the large accumulation of senescent cells, for our body to naturally replace them with something new, with its stem cells. So as if when we were 20 or 30 years old, then we will be healthy because we will have renewed muscles, renewed bones, eyes. Most of the body is able to regenerate at a different speed, but a speed that is too slow when we are old.
Yes, the proof for all of this comes from other species. For instance, if you compare a mouse to a naked mole rat, two similarly sized organisms, but one lives up to 30 years and displays negligible senescence.
Right. And some animals, like the hydra, do not age. What they do is that they have a simple body shape, so that's easier, and the center is growing, and when we go outside of the center, it's moving to the outside slowly and slowly, and when it's too far from the center, it's just thrown away. So it's regeneration and destruction of the old cells.
Then again, though, there is quite a bit of distance between a human being and a hydra.
Yeah, of course. But the mechanisms here highlight that just like an old car of which we replace the parts can stay long. We still have cars that were built many years ago. They were not meant to live so long, so to say, but people have taken care of them and replaced the old parts with new parts. And as you were saying, evolution has given us the tools. We are lucky to have the tools to regenerate. And the only thing is that it's poisoned by other systems that nature has also put in place. But nature is not really guilty because our ancestors were not living long, so it was not asked to make us correctly balanced, and with time we are not well equilibrated. We need to rectify the balance.
One of the things in regenerating tissues, and if I remember correctly, certain species of salamanders display it, and certain plants, is an increased expression of telomerase.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so there is much unknown about telomerase, but we do see that mice, typically, to whom we extend the telomeres, so the end of the chromosomes, live and are healthier. So this was, for example, done with the gene therapy, and the mice, from what I remember, lived 23% longer, which seems to be quite good already for a first start, because sometimes we find such a life extension, and if we dig around, it might be much better, like finding the right dose of a treatment. We clearly don't really know exactly why, or rather, we can always explain why, but in biology and in medicine, it's always easy to find an explanation of what you see, but if it's the right explanation, it's difficult to know. So telomerase, some people thought at some point that activating it, so telomerase, that's the enzyme, the thing that makes the end of the chromosomes longer. Some people thought that it would be bad to extend the end of the chromosomes, that perhaps the cells could divide too frequently and lead to cancers. But the fact is that it doesn't appear to be so. And so one explanation, but as I just said, it's an explanation, is that when the end of the chromosomes are not long enough, it generates genome instability and cancer. So that's why we actually need to have longer ends of chromosomes. And some people have said, well, it's all balanced already in the body. Look, and that's true. There is a lot of balance. But the balance was certainly chosen, fitted by a natural selection in order to be healthy until the age of maybe 30 years, 40 years. So when we live much longer, probably the balance is not right, and we need to adapt it.
Right, and there are a lot of people who think of cancer essentially as a roll of the dice, something that may or may not happen. But if that was the case, we would expect larger animals to develop cancer more frequently than smaller ones. But what we find is that, as a general rule, larger animals live longer.
So here, yes, but I think we start to, well, at least it's a feeling that we have some explanation that explains larger animals. They were selected by evolutions to be large, and so they have a sort of life cycle that is that requires time, just because they need to be large in order to be adult, and so it takes time to grow, etc. And so nature has equipped them with ways to live longer, just because of their life cycle. So depending on whether an animal has a lot of progeny or not, it's going to live more or less long. Depending on whether an animal has a lot of predators or not, it's going to live more or less long. And so large animals, they typically have less predators just because they are large. And it's a sort of virtuous cycle, where large animals will naturally, with time and selection, tend to be better equipped with respect to aging. And indeed, if we look at whales, for example, who are large and live very long, nature has equipped them with lots of systems to avoid cancer and other aging diseases. And so it's rather because evolution has sort of decided to make them big and live long that nature has also found the way to equip them with anti-aging systems that are usually better than ours. And so this is why someone in the UK, for example, recently looked at the genome of the whales in order to look for solutions that they have implemented in their coding system, so to say, that we don't have. And so this is one of the many promising tools that we think may increase our lifespan and health span by a lot.
Right. The systems are all there for us.
Exactly.
It just takes a very patient bioinformaticist.
Yes.
And others.
Patient or active. And the trouble is that there's not enough research. But in fact, if you look around you, what fraction of society works on that? Very little. What fraction of society works on biomedical research? Very little, although it's very important. Health is very important. So the system is not perhaps the economic system, right? The social system doesn't put enough people in biomedical research. That's of course my point of view. And even then, within biomedical research, things are improving, adapting, we could say, with time. We have 2 people working on aging, and people are working on things that used to be important in the past. We should now work on things that matter for people.
But for those listening, understand that this is a massive and looming industry. And so if you want to be the next Rockefeller or Carnegie, this might be your shot.
Absolutely. So that's when things are changing, and clearly things are changing now. It's interesting because even 5 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, people were not seeing the aging tsunami, although it was obvious, unless the people were going to die at the age of 60 or 70, the aging tsunami was already there in advance. It was mathematics. And also solutions to aging, it was obvious from the labs that we had ways to make worms and mice live longer, and that is going to happen to humans. But it was new, and so people, when there's something new, it's like when they drive fast on the freeway, they don't see it. There's something on the street, it's not meant to be there, they don't see it. And so now suddenly, they see it. And so that's why suddenly we have people realizing that there is everyone is going to be affected by aging, and it's a lot of people, and there are solutions, and so there's going to be a huge business. And so we are in this transition period where people are discovering that's what we need to do, and there's business for that. And so society is going to adapt, and within the next perhaps 5 years or 10 years, then we will have enough people working on that. So it's the transition is happening now.
And some of the specific compounds, like rapamycin, that is your positive control in the trials.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there are a few others. Unfortunately, I do not know how to pronounce them, so I'm going to let you do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of them is ALK5, right? So that's ALK5 anyway. It's what we're saying about regenerating the body. It is something that removes the old cells of the body in order to make room for new ones. And it's the same with dasatinib and quercetin. And also we have some rapalogs. So that's something like rapamycin. So rapamycin, most people in the field think that it's slowing down the division of cells, and it's making them recycle their inside as if you were cleaning your room, so that it results in less cancers because the cancer cells divide more slowly, and it results also in improved robust cells because of the cleaning inside, like cleaning the room. In fact, the biggest effect of rapamycin probably due to that, in fact, is not that exactly. It's rather that it is slowing down the division of cells. The body notices it, and within a few weeks, the body asks the stem cells to make new ones to be active, to compensate for the lack of cell division. And when it reaches equilibrium, so which means a normal number of cell divisions for the last layer of cells, this equilibrium is different from what was happening before, because you have a lot more active stem cells, underlying stem cells, and a much bigger pool of intermediate cells. What does this mean? It means that if you have cut for rat in the mice, but also in people taking those drugs, then there are a lot of underlying cells ready to repair the cuts. And so we are seeing in various models, so for now it's only models, it's not full evidence in humans, that the new equilibrium of the body reached with rapamycin is going to repair neurons. So Alzheimer's, we have Alzheimer models where rapamycin seems to cure Alzheimer. So of course, we don't know if it's going to work in humans. It's only a big hope, but we do see a lot of things going on with rapamycin and what we call rapalogs, just because it's changing the equilibrium of the body towards a bigger pool of cells that are ready to intervene in case of issues. And so one of the examples is not rapamycin, but something very close called everolimus, that is currently being tested as an adjuvant of the flu in people. So the flu vaccine, The flu vaccine, why? Because when you are old, remember, you don't have your thymus anymore. You have lost it when you were 30 years ago. So you start to have a weak immune system. And the vaccine responds a bit less well. And we would like the vaccine to be to make you react and be protected from the flu more often. And so when you give rapamycin or everolimus, it's going to change your equilibrium towards having more underlying cells ready to intervene, more cells ready to make your new immune system, for example. And as a result, what we have seen in the first large clinical trial is that those who were taking everolimus, so those treatments for a few weeks, then if they have a flu vaccine, they respond twice as well because they have a better immune system, because they are in a much more active mode, in a much less passive mode. So it's counterbalancing the aging process where the body slowly stops to regenerate.
And quercetin is a familiar compound to many people.
Right. Eat an apple a day to keep the doctor away. There's quercetin in apples. And in fact, the mixture of dasatinib and quercetin, for some reasons that are not fully obvious yet, but it's observed in vitro and in vivo, is able to kill the senescent cells quite well. We still have to discover exactly why. It is just an observed fact.
If it works, we can't complain too much. But yes, we must understand why, of course.
Yes or no. When things work, the goal is to be healthy. We don't really know why physical activity is good. When you look at it from a biological point of view, you have an increased heart rate. You break your muscles, your bones, and that's actually probably what is good about physical activity. Or maybe it's something else. So because some things are going to break the bones and the muscles and will be bad, and others will be good because the repair system will be different and will improve the repair mechanisms. So we believe that physical activity is good because after damaging your body repairs. It's always the same, destroying the old parts to make new parts. But that's just an explanation.
Yes, and if there was a grain of truth to the wear and tear theories, including oxidative damage theories, then exercise should shorten life.
Exactly. But the fact is, when it works, that's good, and it's better that things work rather than when we explain them.
And this endeavor is extremely practical, and you're working on a comparatively tight budget, at least for a scientific venture.
Yes.
But the benefits could be enormous.
Absolutely. Because our goal, of course, is not to extend the life of mice, which is great, but that's our lives and the lives of the people we know and the healthy lives. So it happens that the mice to whom we test have a slight bias. They have more cancers than we do. So testing on them is going primarily to fight cancer, but it's also going to fight other diseases of aging. It's the health need, the real one today, and we could so really make life longer for people to have much bigger projects in their lives. And so it's going to take time, of course, like everything, because even if we had the solution today, people are not going to be 200 years tomorrow, but in 100 years or 150 years, depending on your age. So things are going to take time, but the solutions are going to happen. They are going to happen if we do such things, because if we don't do them, they don't appear naturally. Currently, every year, there are only a few robust mouse lifespan tests, whereas every year we discover 100 ways we think may be good for health. So we need this step that is currently undervaluated, testing towards humans.